Hi, and welcome to another edition of Forbes 2 on 2. I'm Aaron Perlut from Elasticity.
And I'm Jason Falls from Social Media Explorer.
And Jason, I see you're joining us from yet another seedy motel. Congratulations.
What can I say? I'm a seedy kind of guy.
So, first question today. Big news just came out. MySpace, once the granddaddy of them all, sold for a whopping $35 million after News Corp bought it a couple years ago for $580 million. A lot of people have talked about the failings of MySpace, but Jason, what went wrong with MySpace?
I think the actual problem was really just that MySpace didn't listen to the online consumer. They didn't change with the changing marketplace, and they didn't keep up with the competition. Facebook came to the table not necessarily to put MySpace out of business, but they came to the table with the thought of being a communications utility. They had a much more intuitive interface. The design was much more elegant. It was easier to get around. It was easier to connect with friends. And I think that MySpace failed to listen to the online customer that didn't want to be yelled out with advertising. They wanted something more elegant and easier to use, and they ultimately just didn't keep up with the competition.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They always say you can put lipstick on the pig, but it's still a pig. But the thing with MySpace is from the very beginning, it was such a train wreck visually. And you mentioned the user interface, and they never chose to improve on that train wreck at all. It really, even today, if you go to the site, it still looks vaguely similar to the way it did, back 5 years ago. And as Facebook was creating a more clean, easily navigable site, it also spent a lot of time on products. And I don't think MySpace spent a tremendous amount of time on product development. And again, back to your point, the user interface, I think, really failings of it. And ultimately now it's just kind of it's for music aficionados, essentially, is really what it's become, whereas Facebook has kind of become the Walmart of social media in that it's everything to everyone.
That's a really good way to put it. I don't think I've ever quite heard the Walmart of social media, but nonetheless, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Okay, second topic today, a court ruling recently in Georgia found that Paul Sayak, who's the founder and former CEO of Think Resources, was absolutely in the right in suing for libel and damage for an anonymous former employee who had gotten onto a message board or a website and anonymously referred to Mr. Sayak in unpleasant and damaging references to him. Basically, the person logged on to an anonymous website and accused Mr. Sayak and his company of actually violations of the U.S. Labor Department. And the court ruling found that Mr. Sayak could absolutely insist that the website in question turn over the user information to him and his attorney so that that person could be held responsible for his comments. This changes a lot of websites and how they handle anonymous commenting. Aaron, what do you think this means for the right of a consumer or an employee to go online and say things about their employer or to say things about anybody in the online space?
Well, there was two really interesting aspects of this for me. One is that there's typically been a kind of uncomfortable marriage between the legal entity and the public relation entity of any organization. I think this was a great example of where actually his legal team was actually leading this, but where lawyers and public relations practitioners or communication strategists can really work well together in concert. The other thing that was kind of interesting to me is that this was a direct attack, on an individual, on his character, whereas a lot of times there's been questions about parody and whether parody violates some kind of online legal statute, and it does not because it's actually upheld under First Amendment rights. But this was a direct attack, and I think it's obviously I think most of us who spent a lot of time online, and most of us who've been attacked at one time or another, if you spend a lot of time online and you're willing to throw out your opinions, get a little tired of this. But when it's completely unnecessary, negative, and just vicious in this case, it's nice to see that the legal system, and I didn't even know Georgia had a legal system, but the legal system actually upholding the rights, and kind of taking the kimono off to a degree.
Well, and I think the big thing that this says to people online everywhere is there are limits to freedom of speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, and you can't go online to a message board anonymously or otherwise and say anything you want to say about your employer, about a person you know, about a politician. There has to be a level of decorum and civility there. Libel and slander online is no different than libel or slander offline, and I think a lot of social media users, especially those people in forums and message boards, which can be just overburdened with hate and venom, have a rude awakening coming in the coming years as the legal system and the justice system gets a hold of what's going on online. I think there's going to be a lot more cases of people who are sued successfully for libel or slander, whether they do it anonymously or not. So be careful.
Yeah, and I know there's actually, some communication strategies that are predicated upon going out and finding content and commenting on that content. So it is going to be interesting to see how how this court ruling has an impact strategically for communicators moving forward. And it's also important to know that while I've never yelled fire in a theater, I have stood up and yelled poopy pants. So I don't know if there's any connotation there whatsoever, but I just thought I'd throw that out regardless.
I don't think you'll get sued for that, but I think the comment about me being in seedy hotels, I'm going to turn over to my attorney.
This has been another edition of Forbes 212. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aaron Perlut from Elasticity.
And I'm Jason Falls from Social Media Explorer.
Quit hanging out in seedy motels, Jason. Peace out, baby.
Yeah. Poopy pants.